Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for the webinar this afternoon, Accessible Technology Considerations to Support Educational Independence. My name is Sandy Krasnell, and I will be hosting the session today. I'm part of the Iowa Secondary Transition Learning Community team. Our presenters today are Leanne Pichong, speech-language pathologist and AT regional lead for Central Rivers Area Education Agency, and Tiffany Zaug, who is the AT coordinator and lead for students with significant disabilities with Prairie Lakes AEA. Both Leanne and Tiffany are members of the Department of Education Assistive Technology team, and they are both experienced in assistive technology and quite knowledgeable on the topic, and we are delighted that they are joining us this afternoon. We're excited about today's topic, but before we get started, a little housekeeping. It's important that you know that we are recording this session today, and the recording will be posted on the Iowa STLC website so that you can view it, as well as a copy of the slides that will be used today in the presentation. Please feel free to share that link and share the information with your colleagues and others you think would be interested in this topic. Amy Diesenberg-Wines is helping as well this afternoon with any of the Zoom or other technical issues that we have. And she and I will both be checking the chat box so that if you have any questions, we can relay those to the presenters this afternoon. We encourage you to save the link to the website because you may need to use it later. Closed captioning is being used this afternoon and is one of the accommodations that is available to you if you need it upon request. Just make sure you email us at the ISTLC Gmail address about a week prior to the scheduled session. Everyone during the session will be muted, all the participants, so that we can avoid any unnecessary technical issues or any kind of background noise. In the chat box, you will find a link for the slide presentation today that Leanne and Tiffany have provided, as well as the link to the ISTLC website and the ISTLC email address. So with that, we're ready to get started with today's presentation, and I will turn this over to Leanne. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. As Sandy said, Accessible Technology Consideration to Support Educational Independence is the title of our presentation. And as we know, through the use of assistive technology, students with learning disabilities are successfully and independently pursuing post-secondary education. And to meet these unique learning needs, students must be informed, have access, and utilize various assistive technologies that can support their reading, writing, and organizational needs, which is the focus for today. So let's begin. I should say too, I have the bit.ly up on the screen. It was also shared in the chat. It's bit.ly/2 uppercase U 9 uppercase W 3 lowercase w 2. And again, that's listed a couple times in the chat. And near the end, we are planning on presenting for close to an hour or around an hour, maybe a little more, a little less. And then we're planning on having time if you have a question or two. So our outcomes for today is we're hoping that you gain a better or a greater understanding of the SET framework used for consideration for assistive technology in Iowa, that you can identify at least 3 features of critical technologies that can support students in their independence in the areas of reading, writing, and organizing, and that you leave with a list of potential tools that can support independence and use at the post-secondary setting, in the post-secondary setting. And I'm going to say most of the time when I'm talking, I'm going to be talking about things to consider for students. Since we were pre-K, birth to 21, and in the school setting, this will include students through the transition process. Tiffany is going to touch base a bit on more specific transition suggestions at the end of the presentation, or near the end, I should say. So although I will not be mentioning transition too often at all while I'm talking, note that all the tools and features of tools that we're suggesting can be used through high school, through transition into that post-secondary environment, as well as many of these tools are being used beginning in elementary. Sandy said who we were. I'm Leanne Pashong, and again, I'm presenting with Tiffany Zog in case you joined late. Our information is up there. Tiffany is the AT coordinator for Prairie Lakes, and I work for Central Rivers AEA, and we both are on the leadership team. I am a member of the State of Iowa leadership team, and for assistive technology, I should say, and Tiffany is the lead of that team. Okay, areas of assistive technology. This first slide up here is there's a variety of areas that students might be experiencing difficulty completing a task or tasks or accessing materials due to a disability. Assistive technology can provide supports in many of these areas, but to focus, to narrow our focus for today, we are going to be looking specifically again at reading, writing, and we broke that into 2 portions of motor aspects of writing and composition of written materials, and then learning and studying. Before we dive into the areas of AT though, we're going to talk about, we want to give you a little overview or a little bit of information on the process we use for considering assistive technology for students. Part of this is, as you know, it's stated in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, that IEP teams, that the process must include the consideration of assistive technology for all learners eligible for special education. AT must be considered at an initial or an evaluation, at any review, or any time the IEP is revised. Teams can use any information. They may gather and use any resources they have to make an informed decision as to whether or not assistive technology is needed. And although they can use any resources that they have, this Iowa SET framework provides a systematic way for making those decisions. It was adapted from the SET framework by Joy Zabala, which is a 4-part model intended to promote collaborative decision-making in all phases of considering assistive technology through the design, the delivery, and implementation. As you can see on the screen, on the left side, up above, they list the categories or the areas of assistive technology that we had just shown on the previous slide. Typically, when we use the SET framework, we look at one area, possibly 2, again, to narrow the focus of what we're looking for the technology to support. Along the left side then, the S in SET stands for student. There are guiding questions that can be asked, and again, they don't all have to be used, but to support, again, that will support the decision. There are guiding questions for the E, which stands for environments. The next T is tasks. And lastly, the tools needed to support the completion of the task by the individuals due to the disability across environments. So by using those guiding questions and looking at the first three, the student, the environment, and the tasks, by really answering some of those questions as a team, it helps us look at what possible features of tools that we might consider to support this student. The process also helps us answer the basic question, which is, what does a student need to be able to do that he or she is unable to do or do independently at this time? In what environments does the student need to use this skill or perform the tasks? And then what tasks are difficult for their learner? Again, this is a process that can be used by any team to help in the decision-making process, consideration process. And this framework, I should say, can be used by any team when they're looking at the consideration for assistive technology. It can be used for any AT concern. And although I said the set and linked it to IDEA and special education and students who are receiving special education services on an IEP, this also works very well. It can be used on students who are on 504 plans or assistive technology accommodations are being used, again, by going through the same process. We encourage students, especially as they begin that transition at the age of 13, 14 years of age, going through high school, to really be active participants, if possible, in this. Because it's, as you know, critical for students to be able to state what their strengths are, what their areas of needs are or barriers they might have, and then to be able to speak to what helps them, what supports, what accommodations, what tools or features of tools might be needed. So that is the framework we use. Again, when considering tools, the last T of the SET framework, we typically look at what features are needed or might support an area of need. The tools with the identified features then can be selected and should be ones that work for that individual. One tool may not be the feature, may not have the features that are needed for another student. So again, as we know, IEPs and 504s are student specific. We want to make sure the tools we have and the features match those. And lastly, we want you to know that the tools listed or that we might show or talk about, we're talking about many more than we're showing, are not the only possibilities. There are many more options if one searches the web or collaborates with others. Or you may have a student who already uses a specific tool that we don't name. That doesn't mean it is not a good tool. If it works for that student to complete the task that they need to complete, I would consider it probably a good tool. So this next chart is an accessibility features chart. The link at the top, I should have said on the set, there is a link where you can make a copy of that set too, on a couple slides earlier. This chart also has a link, which you will have to you are instructed to make a copy if you so choose. And along the left, it lists different features of text readers. These features might be needed to support a specific area of need a student has. Features such as text-to-speech, changing of the voice, changing of the background, screen masking, which hides a portion of the screen to help students focus. And then as you open your own and you scroll down, along with the reading supports, it also lists supports for study skills and writing. So including speech to text in that option, word prediction, graphic organizers, which Tiffany will talk about when she gets to the writing area. Along the top, across the top, I should say, down the column are the features. Along the top rows lists first some accessibility links to operating systems that might support or have some of these features. Then it lists some commonly used text readers, and if that text reader has that feature, a check corresponds with it. So again, you can look at the features, you can highlight along the side and say, yes, this student needs this feature, and then it helps you possibly look at tools that have some of those features. I hope I'm explaining this okay. And then it also lists tablets such as an iPad or an iOS device, that has those same features. Again, when we're looking at this, we want to make sure the student knows what features work for them and that they can talk about these features or the tools with the features that are needed. Okay, area of assistive technology, we are actually getting to it, that we're going to be talking about is the area of reading. And based again on that consideration process that we went through previously, we want to look at, in the area of reading, what is it the individual needs to be able to do that he or she is currently not able to do, or not able to do as independently as they would like or need to. Oops. Did I have that slide twice? Okay. Sorry about that. Most frequently, requests for AT come in where people are seeking supports in the areas of reading and or writing. Along with being able to answer this question, when I said as independently, we also want to look at, does it help them increase, maintain, or improve this area, which is part of the legal definition of assistive technology. So when we consider assistive technology for reading, we have to look at what areas, what could be a barrier to reading, or in both the materials, or what, based on a disability, what supports might they need. And a student may need supports due to limited visual acuity or an impairment, due to decoding or fluency concerns, fluency which might present itself as reading slower, a slower speed, accuracy, or through expression. Both of those then could play a factor in comprehension, which is a major goal. The goal of reading is to be able to gain information from that content and to be able to comprehend it. And lastly, it may be in an area of a physical need that it's difficult for the individual to hold a book or to turn a page, which again, might need a different format of a text. So as we look at those areas of needs, there's different formats for accessible printed text. And the different formats, there's 4: Braille, large print, audio, and digital text, specifically accessible digital text. The first two, Braille and large print, can be critical and essential for individuals who are blind or have a limited vision. They may be needed that way. We are going to focus on features mainly for the last two, specifically accessible digital text, because digital text is the most versatile. It's the most easily customized in that you can change its appearance by changing the font, increasing the size of the font, the type of the font, the color of the font, changing the background color. You can add extra visual supports. You can use bookmarking tools if a student needs it. Text to speech, it can be read aloud, or screen reading tools, including ones with navigation if they need that. There are many features of digital text that can be used. So as we look at the areas of need and the areas to consider, if a student needs help or supports in reading, text-to-speech is often one of the first supports we look at. And there are tools that can help us make those decisions. And text-to-speech can have with or without highlighting. And again, most text-to-speech programs, you can change the voice and the speed. We can also simplify text and or summarize it. We can use dictionary tools. And then if someone doesn't want it in a digital format but only wants to listen, we have audio. Those are the ones we are going to look at different tools as we look at those features there. So first, text-to-speech. We look first at the operating system, might be a place to start. Your operating system is the software on your device that runs your computer. It handles all the programs, and it really controls what you can do with your computer, or I shouldn't say computer, with your device. The operating systems listed have features including text-to-speech. Sometimes that's all that's needed. At other times, additional features are needed, and the built-in ones may not be the one needed or the one of choice. So when someone asks, what operating system are you running? A person might respond, Windows 10, or the latest Chrome operating system as I use a Chromebook, or iOS 13 on my iPad. These all have accessibility features built in, and you can click on any of those and it'll take you to the developer's website. So you can look at, oh, it already has text-to-speech. This is how I would turn it on. This is how it might support reading, in that it will read it to them. Then there are also tools, extra apps or extensions or software, depending again on your device, that support these. Popular ones are Snap and Read from Don Johnston, Read and Write for Google, or Read and Write from TextHelp, and Kurzweil from Cambian. For the iPad, you have VoiceStream Reader and Dolphin Easy Reader. I'm going to hop out of this 1 second here. And can you now see a read and write screen still?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to show you a little bit on read and write, and I've chosen read and write. It has it's free to teachers, and it also is, there are components of it that are free for anyone. So it's a good place to start. Again, not the only one. But when I start here, a text reader, I put my cursor where I want it to begin. And just a second here. I'm going to set this to screen so you can see a little bit more. And here is my read and write toolbar up above. When I select this, I bet you cannot hear it, can you? Just a second, I'm going to stop share. Just realized I forgot to share my sound. Now hopefully you can.
This extension by TextHelp offers support tools for the web and common file.
Can you hear it now? Okay. So it will read. I can change the speed of it. I can pick a word and select the dictionary. And again, it will read, not only define
Noun. With similar features or characteristics, the only thing we have in common is our.
So if we have a student who needs additional supports on the vocabulary, the dictionary's there, and again, it will read them, read the definition. It also has a picture dictionary for if that helps. If this helps describe to you what common means. It has a grammar checker. I can highlight information and then extract that later to use for writing. That also helps students if they may need help retaining information that they have read, so they can use highlighters to highlight the most important text. So if I found this to be most important, I would put that. I could put it has read it aloud, supporting details, and then I can start a new document. This has a number of tools that can support different aspects of reading. It has, the screen masking tool. So if a student needs support in focusing on a specific line or text as it is read, they can use the screen masking. My intention isn't for you to know all the features or know how to use them, just to know they're available. Some of these same features, and again, if you look at that feature matching chart, are available in different tools also. So I just went through that was read and write, and Kurzweil from Campion also has some of those and has some other great features.
Leanne, you're sharing your notes now.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't need those shared. Thank you. Just a second. I'm going to stop share here because I do need my notes. So I'm going to go back here. Thanks, Tiff. I do need to pull my notes back up. As you could see on that last one, I was going to show a 2-minute video on it, and I chose to go out and just talk about it. I also was going to mention at the beginning, we are sharing via Google Slides in Zoom. Google Slides does have a closed captioning feature that Tiffany and I often turn on, and it will close caption live. And it's just at the bottom, there's a CC when you are using Google Slides. So if you ever do presentations, that supports the accessibility feature too. However, since we have a person closed captioning right now, we are not turning that on, so you don't have double closed captioning. So now back to this. Text-to-speech tools. These are on-the-go conversion ones. And what that means is literally if I have a printed text, a sheet of paper, a book, a physical book, a newspaper, and I want to know a menu, what that says, I can literally use one of these apps or devices and in some fashion hold it over and it will read the information aloud to me. These are super helpful for when they are needed, and there are ones for different platforms. Some have costs, some are free. But again, they're on-the-go conversions, and by that it means it has to do what's called optical character recognition. So it takes a picture and switches it back so it can be read. But some do it on the fly where you don't even have anything on If I used my phone, I don't even have anything on my phone, but it will read what the text, what it is showing. Then the next one is apps or extensions or websites that either simplify text or summarize text. And there is a difference. Ones that simplify text actually take higher vocabulary or more difficult words, and they reduce them or simplify them down to more basic words. So it's a greater chance of maybe a person understanding the content. You most often can hover over it and then you can see what the words were. So it not only reduces the complexity to start out, but it also increases the chance of learning those it might increase, I should say, the chance of learning those new vocabulary words. Those do not focus on reducing the quantity of words, because most often when a more difficult word is replaced by other words, it actually increases the number of words that are going to be shown. And then a text summarizer, those types of, I'm going to say programs, shorten the amount of text presented. They do not necessarily, or they do not remove difficult words. They shorten either sentences or paragraphs to make it down to the summary. And I always say that if you're using a summarizer, it's a really good idea to check to make sure it really picked out the critical feature or the critical part that you wanted to leave. The text summarizer tools, there's a website, which is Text Compactor. And then there's Read and Write for Google. Those are the summarizers. Text simplifier tools include Rewordify, which is a free website, and then Snap and Read. I was actually going to show a video of Snap and Read, but looking at our time, I think I'll just make sure the link is added to this slide so you can watch what it does, because Don Johnston, who creates Snap and Read, they have dynamic text leveling, so it really does it. You can just put it there, click, and it changes it on the screen right in front of you, but you can see it right within the document. This is a huge feature for many students. And then text to audio conversion. This feature does just that. It no longer has the digital component of, well, it's still digital, but it's audio. It doesn't, so if you do not need it printed on your screen, but you just want to listen to it, there are apps, extensions, and then you can search for free audio tools, just like you can search for free features or any of the tools that I've talked about so far. So Kurzweil 3000 has one built in, and so does Read and Write for Google, that can easily take what's on your display and change it into an audio only format. And then lastly, in the area reading, to support that comprehension, dictionaries or thesauruses, resource tools may be needed. And there are a variety of those. Again, you can search to see which ones you can find. And some of the tools have those built in, like I had shown with Read and Write. And then there's also supports in Snap and Read for it. So as well as Kurzweil. I went through this really quickly, but my point being there are a lot of features. And as you go through that set, it helps narrow those features down based upon the student. And then hopefully some of these tools listed and the links will help provide you with additional information. I am now going to stop sharing and let Tiffany take over.
Hello, everyone. I am going to, oh, I don't want to share. I want to present, not share. So I am going to talk today about the aspects of writing and organization. So first we're going to start at looking at the motor aspects of writing and the composition of written work. So again, as Leanne had said, we should record all we have discussed with the features of writing within the SET framework. The SET framework is our Iowa's guidance for helping with putting together what students need for the students, the environment, the task, and the tools. So when we think about the question, what is the individual wants to be able to do in writing that he or she is currently unable to do, we want to think about will, in the area of writing, will it increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities for that student? So in both areas of writing, the mechanics and the written expression, we need to be thinking about what kind of tools, and I should say tools, I should say task, what is the task, right? And then the tools are, and the features of those tools that we'll be considering. So these are the aspects of writing that we're going to be looking at. Actually, they're the aspects of writing. So we have mechanical act of writing letters, handwriting / keyboarding, and we're really going to focus on the word processing part of that. And then we have the act of composing, which is the text production, and planning and organizing text production. So mapping that out, those type of things. And the other area is types of writing, narrative, expository. We aren't going to get to that today. We're going to really focus on word processing and the planning of writing. So if we think about word processing, we do know that word processing platforms, and when I say platforms, I'm talking about, is it a Mac, is it a PC, is it an Android tablet, is it an Apple tablet? Just so you know that that's when we're talking about platforms, that's what we're talking about. So most of those platforms have word processors built in, and most of those word processors automatically have spell check built into them also. One of the other things is the thesaurus. That's another tool we use for students, and we have provided a link to a thesaurus online website that's free for anybody to use. And then the other part of word processing that we're going to talk about are the grammar checks. I'm going to take you quickly to look at, Leanne had shared read and write, and the one thing that she didn't share, she mentioned it, was the check it. So I'm just going to bring up, I'm going to jump out of my presentation a minute. So are we seeing my read write screen? Okay, so I have read write. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a circle with a checkbox. And I just brought up a 9th grade passage. And if I go to check it, you can see now that it's a grammar and spelling check. So it has underlined areas that it would question, have questions about in this document. So Eliza is a name, so it's highlighting that because it doesn't really recognize that. But if I go down here and I have as if someone has struck, so it took some and one, and it's saying questioning, should that be one word or two words? So it's just a chance. And then if you click on it, it does give you how they feel it should be done. And you can either click on that or you can ignore it. I'm going to click on it and it's going to change it within the document. So here's different ways that it thinks that Eliza could be spelled. It would be quite interesting to do my name, right? I have that spelled wrong frequently, but so it just gives you ideas and does the grammar and spelling check within Read Write for Google. That's just a quick check it on there. I am going to share my screen. Oh, just a second. Oh. I'm not sure why when I go to share it's, okay, there we go. So as we think about spell checkers, grammar checkers, thesaurus, I also want to just mention Ginger software is also one of the options, and Grammarly. And I know this is a transition Zoom, but one of the things I want people to know that some websites, some apps, some software are not approved for certain grade levels. So Grammarly would be an example of something that if you're third grade and below, the Child Rights Protection Act does not cover that. So just some of those things to think about as we're talking about different apps or extensions, things like that. So the other area in word processing that we talk a lot about is word prediction. And it actually, when it was initially used to help students with physical disabilities increase typing speed and decrease the number of keystrokes needed to complete a word. But it has been found, obviously, useful tool for students with chronic spelling difficulties. So it predicts what you're intending to type based on your frequency. One of the co-writer by Don Johnston, Kurzweil by Cambion, and ReadWrite have all have word prediction built in. Most word prediction software that are comprehensive are a paid feature. So within co-writer is a paid feature, Kurzweil and ReadWrite to have the word prediction are paid. And there are built-in word prediction. For example, in your phone, you can have a word predictor show up. There is a difference between the type of word predictions. For example, co-writer uses what they call a neuron prediction engine, which follows the natural relationships of ideas and concepts in the brain. So when you're writing on a topic, co-writer automatically understands the topic area and starts to predict ahead of time using topic-specific vocabulary. Unlike if I'm typing on my phone and I put a T, it's going to start predicting words that start with T, right? This is going to actually start to predict other words that would also come next, not specific to a specific letter within the word prediction box. The next area we talk about is speech recognition, and I think this is probably the most popular used tool, especially since it's free most of the time. So with the word prediction, speech recognition is when I'm talking, the computer's writing for me, right? So as I talk, it writes. One of the things people need to remember, though, when they're using speech recognition or speech to text, when you're talking, you need to remember to put in your punctuation. Otherwise, it becomes one run-on sentence, and it's sometimes hard to go back and re-edit that later on. For some speech recognition that's out there within Google, if you go into tools, there's voice typing, which works within Google Docs. Speech recognition within Microsoft. Most of the softwares anymore the platforms have speech to text built within it. You'll notice, I don't know if you noticed when Leanne was showing ReadWrite for Google, they also have speech to text. Co-writer has speech to text. All of the big names that we have mentioned have speech to text built within it also. So again, it is a popular one, but it is harder than people think it is in regards to if you don't have clear speech, if you talk too fast, those type of things, it struggles with a little bit. It's my understanding Google is working on changing some of their speech to text so it helps with people that have a speech impairment. So we'll be curious to see when that's released. One of the other areas that are used, but I don't think it's as frequently used is voice dictation or voice recording. I think back in the day when we had a tape recorder in our classroom and we hit record, and the kids could record their voice or their reading, we used it more. I think a lot of people have maybe jumped over from this over to speech to text, but voice dictation is really good for the students that maybe have a speech impairment, that can talk into a device and it's going to just record, and it's going to be an audio recording of that. It also is a great replacement for somebody has a scribe. So if you think about least restrictive voice dictation versus somebody scribing for somebody, this would be the least restrictive for that. So if you're looking across at the different tools that we have listed, Google Keep, it goes across platforms. So when I talk about Google Keep, I can open Google Keep on my phone. I can have the app on my phone. I can have the extension in my Google Drive. I can have it on my website. So it's across areas. Evernote is also one that you can interact across the platforms. For example, if I'm on my phone, whatever I put in my app on my phone, it will automatically, when I open it up on my computer, it's going to be there. There's Audio Note, Notability, Pages on a Mac or an app, and then Notes are all have the ability to do voice dictation within them. So word processing and text to speech. I mentioned speech to text, right? That's when I'm talking and it's writing for me. Another benefit is using text to speech on top of those tools. It's a tool used to assist reading, but can also assist writing. If the student misspells a word or there's a grammatical error, the student may pick up on the auditory cue when the sentence is being spoken aloud. So again, going back to the text-to-speech options that Leanne provided, these would it would also be beneficial for some of our students within writing. So the act of composing, and we're talking about planning and organizing the production of writing. So outlining concept maps. I have quite a few apps or extensions or softwares listed on the screen, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about Popplet, the Popplet app, because a lot of school districts use Popplet. And if you use it as a mind map, Popplet helps students think and learn visually. They can capture facts, thoughts, and images and learn to create relationships between them. So it's that mind mapping and creating that visual for students while they're organizing their writing. So Mind Mashed also does that. If you clicked on the graphic organizer link, there are free templates. There's a bunch of them there that you can download and use. And then Read and Write for Gold, Co-Writer, and Kurzweil all have the ability to do the organizing of your writing. So we're going to talk a little bit about note-taking. Actively taking notes during class can be critical for college success. Good note-taking not only improves the comprehension of the material, but aids in retaining the information as well. So on this screen, we have Evernote, Notability, Audio Note, Google Keep, and OneNote, and LiveScribePen. I'm just going to talk, and then there's also a link for 5 effective note-taking methods. So as we look at this, pretty popular ones are OneNote, which is a Microsoft. Google Docs and Google Keep are other ones. So the LiveScribePen I'm just going to mention because we've kind of talked about the other ones. That would not be an app or an extension, that is a tool. So it is actually a pen that you hold, and as you're writing, it's recording what is being said in the classroom. So there are students that use the LiveScribePen also. And then they can hook it up to the computer or save it to a file, and then they can hear it back. They can touch where they wrote on the paper, and they can hear the recording that's being done at that time. I just want to mention when we're thinking about tools for students, we also need to think about not having them have 40 different tools when certain tools can do it, other things. For example, Leanne talked about features. So if you're thinking about tools and you're thinking about a student that maybe already is using OneNote, would you automatically give them a LiveScribe pen and have them have another tool? So thinking about how many tools a student has on them and what the purpose is, and can they be combined into one tool or that they're familiar with instead of having to carry a bunch of tools that all have similar features. So it's really important to think about that feature piece within all of the documents that we're talking about today. Next, we're going to just talk about the learning, studying and learning supports. So this is really going back to how being a good ways to study, good ways to organize ourselves. And again, we're going to take that back to the set process, and this would be the task, right? The task of this is we're studying and learning, and what are the features I need when I'm studying and learning to be able to complete the task. So what is it the individual wants to be able to organize that he or she is currently unable to do or effectively use as desired? And again, will it help the student increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of organization? What parts of organization could be improved? You know, do you ask yourself, do I lose my materials? Would it help if I was organized differently? Do I miss deadlines? Would it help if I scheduled reminders to complete tasks? Those are all the things that we need to think about when we're thinking about organization, especially for students that are transitioning to post-secondary, making sure that they're up on time. Are they meeting their deadlines? Can I send reminders? Because unlike high school, we might not have the reminders of here's your syllabus, right? And this is the time frame to get it done, and there's no reminders within that school day or that college day to be able to remind me that I need to do these things. So we're going to talk about some of those tools that can help with organization and learning supports. So some considerations of features to think about are folder naming, coding by color, notification reminders, making lists, extracting information for use later, and then keeping track of information collected. So we're going to talk about those different things within the tools that we're going to talk about here in a minute. So examples of location and organization learning supports, Google Drive, Office 365 for education. So Google Drive, for example, you can organize your folders by color code. You can list view or grid view. You can organize it by number, by alphabet. You can star things. You can color code. You can have consistent naming. Within the Google Drive yourself, you can search by words. You can search by title, type of document. Are you looking for a presentation? Are you looking for a Word document? And it's accessible from any device. So I can put Google Drive on my computer. It doesn't matter which computer I have. I can have it on my phone. Just allows me to be able to organize and have things together. Examples of tools for notification and reminders to assist with staying on top of deadlines, events, tasks. Google Calendar, Outlook, My Study Life, To-Do List, and Google Keep. And I'm going to step out a minute and we're going to talk about Google Keep because I want you'll notice that you can use Google Keep across all of the things that we're going to talk about today. So I just want to share with you some Google Keep. So can you see my Google Keep? So you might look at this and think, wow, this is a little overwhelming. These are notes that I have taken. So everything in purple are notes that I have taken at different conferences. When I create a note, You can see that there's reminders. You can edit, label, you can archive, you can trash. So I'm going to take a note, and we're just going to call this transition. Need to tweak my presentation. So I can send myself a reminder, and I can have it remind me later today. I can set up the time. I can have it due tomorrow, next week. I can pick a date and time. I can pick a place. So I can create a reminder, and it's going to send me this reminder to tell me this is what I need to do. Okay. I do have a to-do list. Actually, I'll scroll down. It's my red to-do list. So no matter what I do, I put it on my to-do list. And then what I like about this is when I get to things done. Okay, let's open it up. When I get things done, it actually crosses off and shows that the item is complete, versus when I do my Post-it notes and I throw it away and then I'm like, oh, did I do it? Did I not do it? It lets me know that I have things done. Some of the other features within Google Keep, I can add a collaborator. So I can create my shopping list and send it to my husband, and he can open it in his, and then we just have an active document that we're collaborating. Or I can send a message to Leanne. And I don't know if any of you noticed when I was scrolling through presentations, we had collaborated on information note-taking when we were at a conference together. So we could collaborate that. Here gives you the option to color coordinate information within here. You can have pictures in here. You can add a label. You can add drawings. You can make copies. You can have check boxes. And you can even make a copy and send it to your Google Docs if you'd like. There are some other really cool features about Google Keep, but we're not going to get into that today. But just a great overall tool. You can use hashtags to organize. So you could hashtag social studies, and then the student could put in their social studies assignments, or you can hashtag by a date. However, it organizes best for a student, because then you can sort by hashtags. So that's Google Keep quickly. I'm going to reshare my screen. So making lists or to-do lists would be another thing that we need to consider. And like I said, I showed you Google Keep and how you can create to-do lists there. Obviously, that's where my world revolves around, because then I can bring it up on my phone. I can, wherever I'm at, have my to-do list. But to-do list is another way you can do that. Evernote and calendar tasks within Gmail and Outlook also give you the ability to make to-do lists for yourself. Some examples of tools for organizing support features, collecting and materials. So Read and Write has a highlight information where you can go out into the internet, you can highlight it, and you can extract that information. I can also do that I can go here up in my right-hand corner. I can turn my Google Keep on, and I can take notes with the presentation we're doing right now, and it'll actually link this presentation to that note. So it gives you the ability to do that also. I'm just going to take us back a moment to the accessibility features chart that Leanne was so kindly went through this earlier. And you can't see it on here, but again, if you click in the document, you're going to see the features for writing. We just wanted to give you a screenshot of what that looked like. And so you can go into that. So now we're going to talk a little bit about college requirements and transition and assistive technology. One of the things that we can't stress enough is that what happens in services in high school does not mean that automatically follows a student to college. That is because post-secondary institutions follow ADA, where high schools follow IDA. So what the student is currently using in high school does not necessarily mean that is what's going to follow them to college. So here's some things that we would recommend you have your students do while they're in high school. Connect with the voc rehab counselor and AEA transition coordinators within your area education agencies. If you were to open this document and click on the vocational rehabilitation counselor, it will actually take you to a document that tells you who the voc rehab counselor is for the school district that you're looking for. One of the other things students need to do while they're in high school, they should call and make an appointment to visit with a disability director when they are scheduling college visits. This person needs to be their new best friend while they transition to post-secondary. Since services at each post-secondary institution can vary greatly, it's important to connect with a disability service director or coordinator, whatever that college is. College labels that person to be. When going on to college, to discuss what accommodations that university and college is able to provide. For example, some colleges may be using ReadWrite for Google, and the student may be using Kurzweil while they're in high school. Are the features between the two and the features the student needs the same? Can that student be switched over to ReadWrite for Google? Those would be things that would need to happen prior to college starting. It is strongly recommended to do this as soon as possible. College is much more challenging, and it's better to start out using approved accommodations as they transition to their new environment. Things to remember: each community college is required to have a disability director, and as your child explores potential college type disability services, into the search bar on the college website to find out who that contact person is. So open the website to where the college or university they're looking for, and then type in disability service, and that usually should give you at least who that person may be to contact. As we're talking about contacts, here is a list of the AT contacts per AEA and Des Moines Public School District. So if you are within the AEA or Des Moines Public, these are the people that you can contact in order to get help or to have conversations about assistive technology. This is just a little excerpt. We wanted you to know this was adapted. This presentation was adapted from a 2018 DCDT International presentation that Julie Freed, who is from Grantwood AEA, Leanne, and myself did in 2018. We will open it up for questions at this point.
Tiffany, I don't see any questions in the chat box at this point in time.
And we didn't actually have any filled out on the Google form that we sent either. So
Shall we give them just a little wait time to see if they have any questions they want to ask? This is your opportunity if you're on the webinar. So
We do know we went through this information quickly and that there are a lot of links in there. However, that's we figured if we dealt with a lot of features, then people could look specifically at the students and decide what would be most useful.
One question that did come in, are there any deaf or hard of hearing assistive technology devices or that would be useful for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing? Any that either of you can think of at this moment?
Definitely would recommend turning on the closed captioning of features, which I'm sure, and like we said, those are built into Google Slides. Possibly to PowerPoint too now, Tiff.
I was going to say PowerPoint also has closed captioning built within.
Some of the text readers that have highlighting features might support. Obviously, it's still not going to be able to hear it, but at least be able to help as they read along. Wouldn't support with the text to speech, but some of those tools could be used still.
What I wonder about is if there would be questions specific to that. Would it be reasonable that they might want to speak with their teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing? Most of the AEAs have either someone under their employ or they contract with someone to provide that service, and they might be a really good resource, not just for the students who are in high school and younger, but just like you guys looking to the future for things that would be helpful as young adults are transitioning.
Absolutely, I would recommend.
Thanks, Leanne. Any other questions through the chat box? A comment, these are great resources. Thank you very much. So I wonder if, given that, if we think that all the questions have come in that we're going to get today and more, thank you for sharing these resources. So there are a lot of people who really appreciate the time that you have spent today. And obviously we do as well. Thank you so much. It was such a nice presentation with lots of good information and resources. And as a reminder, this will be posted on the ISTLC website. And as soon as those things are posted, we will send out an email to you to notify you that both the video recording and the slide presentation as well. So as we wind down this afternoon, thank you for joining us, and thank you particularly to Tiffany and to Leanne. We really appreciated your contribution today. And a reminder for everyone that the next webinar is actually part 2 of Technology and Transition. And it will be looking at the areas more of living and working. And our partners from Vocational Rehabilitation and Easter Seals will be joining Melissa Lawson from the Iowa Department of Education. And they will be describing their services, sharing some of their frameworks, whatever those may be, similar to the SET, I assume, for looking at the needs of the students and different options to address those. And they will also have some technologies that they will be sharing that will increase independence. The presentation is scheduled again for May 12th, same time, 3 to 4:30, and you will be getting more information on that as well as a link for registration. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please do let us know at the ISTLC or Iowa Secondary Transition Learning Community email address. And we always follow up on inquiries that we get. So please let us know what you're thinking. We're getting close to the end of this academic year, and so we're doing some planning for next year. So if you have some ideas or suggestions for webinars or topics that you would like to see addressed, please send us a note through that email, and we will take that, take a look at that as we plan for next year. So unless anyone has anything else to say, thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you in May. Bye.